Good day, everyone. Today we're going to discuss the closing entries. We're done with the rest of the um, process in the accounting cycle. So we have only remaining two process, the closing process and the reversing process. The reversing process is optional, but this closing process is necessary so that the books of accounts will be prepared for the next accounting period. So, doon tayo sa principle of periodicity, that the life of a business is indefinite, but it is cut into periods so that the results of operations can be determined on a period basis. So after each period, we have to make the closing process, or we have to perform the closing process. So what is closing process? So we open the books at the beginning of the year and then we close it at the end of the year, or we open the books at the beginning of the period and we end it at the end of the period. So what is the closing process? Closing process is merely the steps required to prepare accounts for financial statement preparation and is the start of the new or next accounting period. The closing process consists of steps to transfer temporary account balances to permanent accounts and make the general ledger ready for the next accounting period. Ano ibig sabihin nun? So, yung mga nag-open tayo ng mga accounts, cash, accounts receivable, notes receivable, asset accounts, liabilities accounts. Dun sa capital accounts, meron tayong revenue and expense accounts na inopen. So, ang target natin is to maintain permanent accounts, asset, liabilities, and capital. Pero meron tayong drawings, meron tayong expenses, meron tayong revenue. Hindi na ito dapat ma-forward sa next accounting period because these items belong to the current period. What are you going to do with this? You are going to make these accounts zero. And the difference in these accounts will be added to the capital account so that there will no more be expense and revenue accounts and drawing accounts in the next accounting period. Yun lang naman ang ibig sabihin ng closing process. Inopen mo yung revenue account, expense account, and drawing account for the current period. Hindi mo yan pwedeng ipasa sa next accounting period. So, before the start of the next accounting period, i-close mo siya. Para yung susunod na accounting period, ang mare-record lang doon ay ang expense, revenue, and drawings of that accounting period. Paano mo i-close? Gagawin mong zero lahat. So, kung naka-debit siya ng una, gawin mong credit para maging zero. Kung naka-credit siya nung una, gawin mong debit para maging zero. Ganun lang kadali yung what does closing or accounting closing process mean? The closing process consists of three main steps. First, identify temporary accounts that need to be closed. Then, record the closing entries. Then, prepare the post-closing trial balance. Remember niyo yung mga trial balance na ginawa natin along the way? Nung una, wala pa tayong trial balance. After recording the external transactions, nagkaroon na tayo ng trial balance. Yun yung unadjusted trial balance. Then we made the adjustments. And we came up with a adjusted trial balance. So we have two trial balances na. Now, after the closing process, magkakaroon tayo ng pangatlong trial balance. That is the post-closing trial balance, which is similar to the balance sheet because wala ng expense and revenue accounts. Since income statement accounts record current year activity, they must be zeroed out or closed at the end of each accounting period. This way, they will have a zero balance for the start of the next accounting period, and only current balances will exist in these accounts. In order to achieve this, closing entries must be made to transfer the ending in income statement balances to balance sheet accounts. So, yung mga income statement balances, ililipat natin sa balance sheet accounts. So, ano-ano ba yung mga income statement balances? We have revenue, expense. Yun yung nasa income statement natin. Yung drawing, hindi part ng income statement, pero it has to be closed to the capital directly. Itong income statement balances, yung revenue and expenses, it has to be closed first to the income summary account para malaman natin ano ang difference. Yung difference na yon, yun ang ilalagay natin sa capital account. Yung drawing, diretso na nating ilalagay sa o ibabawas sa capital account. Closing entries, also called closing journal entries, are entries made at the end of the accounting period to zero out all temporary accounts and transfer their balances to permanent accounts. In other words, the temporary accounts are closed or reset at the end of the year. Here, ang sabi also called journal closing entries. Remember nang gumagawa tayo ng worksheet. May mga entries tayong ginagawa doon. Pero hindi yun part ng process, yung mga entries na yun doon sa worksheet. Scratch lang yung worksheet. So, to make it a part of the process, it has to be in the journal. So, yung closing entries natin doon sa worksheet, ay hindi yun official process. Scratch lang yun. To make it formal, ilalagay natin yan sa books of accounts, which is the journal book. Now, and ledger. Now, yung natatandaan ba ninyo, yung ginawa natin sa process na dun sa worksheet, ang una, pinrepare natin yung yung trial balance or unadjusted trial balance. First, we prepared the adjusted trial balance. Then, we made the adjusting entries dun sa worksheet. And then, we prepared the adjusted trial balance. After the adjusted trial balance, we have the closing entry, closing entries. Then, after the closing entries, we prepare the post-closing trial balance. After the post-closing trial balance, we prepare the financial statements. We have the income statement and balance sheet. Now, dun sa worksheet natin, ganun yung arrangement. Pero dun sa process natin, hindi. Gagawa muna tayo ng financial statements bago tayo gumawa ng closing entry sa journal and ledger. Bakit? Dun sa proseso, makikita mo kagad. Dun sa worksheet, makikita mo kagad yung process ng pagkakaroon ng unadjusted trial balance, and post-closing trial balance. Pero hindi mo muna kaagad ma-record yung post-closing, yung closing entries mo to come up with a post-closing trial balance kasi hindi ka pa sure dun sa financial statements mo eh. Hindi mo pa alam kung papasa na yung financial statements mo sa regulatory bodies. So, kunyari, nag-submit ka na ng financial statements mo at okay na, wala nang problema. You go back to the books of accounts to record the closing entries para sure ka na yung closing entries mo ay tama na. Wala ka nang masyadong adjustments. Yun yung purpose naman. Pero yung logical sequence nung paggawa is trial balance, unadjusted trial balance, adjusted trial balance, post-closing trial balance, then financial statements. Then yun yung logical sequence. Kung walang error, wala kang perfect talaga yung gagawin mo. But considering na maraming adjustments, kahit na nakagawa ka na ng financial statements, marami pa ring adjustments, it is wiser to delay the recording of the closing entries to the books of accounts until na-finalize mo na talaga yung financial statements mo. Okay, at the end of each year, the revenue and expense account balances are transferred to the income summary account. Yan yung sinabi ko kanina. This way, all of the revenue and expense accounts will have a zero balance at the end of the year and will start the next year fresh with no prior activity. The income summary account balance is then transferred to the retained earnings or capital accounts, depending on what type of entity the business is. So, magkikreate tayo ng temporary closing account. Ito yung tinatawag na income summary account. Sa income summary account, doon natin ilalagay lahat ng revenue at expenses. At ang difference nung income summary account na yon, yun ang ilalagay natin sa capital account. So, remember, it is a temporary clearing account. Hindi siya bahagi ng financial statement. Nagiging bahagi lang siya ng libro, books of accounts, at the end of the accounting period for the purpose of getting the difference between revenue and expenses. Yun yung purpose niya, ma-determine kung ano ang revenue or ano ang resulta ng revenue at expenses. Net income ba yan or net loss? After ma-determine kung net income or net loss yan, yung resulta ay ilalagay sa capital account. It is either added to or deducted from the capital account. Kung net income yan, it will be added to the capital account. If it is net loss, then that will be deducted from capital account. So, ang capital account natin for sole proprietorship ay name of the owner and capital. Sa partnership, name of the owners, then capital. Pagdating sa corporation, it will be retained earnings. So, doon sa retained earning account, i-add or i-deduct ang resulta ng income summary. After the closing entries have been made and all of the temporary accounts have been closed, a post-closing trial balance is prepared. A post-closing trial balance is a listing of all the accounts with balances that will carry forward to the next accounting period. Since the income statement accounts do not have balances anymore, you can think of this as an opening balance sheet for the next accounting period. So, yung imagine niyo na lang, yung balance sheet nyo, ginawa nyong trial balance. Yun na yung post-closing trial balance. Kasi lahat na ng expense and revenue items ay tinanggal na dun sa trial balance mo. So, anong matitira? Asset, liabilities, and capital. Ano ba yung asset, liabilities, and capital? Di balance sheet. So, types of closing entry. Temporary accounts can either be closed directly to the retained earnings account or to an intermediate account called the income summary account. The income summary account. The income summary account is then closed to the retained earnings account. Both ways have their advantages. Closing all temporary accounts to the income summary account leaves an audit trail for accountants to follow. The total of the income summary accounts after the all temporary accounts have been closed should be equal to the net income for the period. Pwedeng diretso na pala. Diretso na sa retained earnings or capital account. Kaya lang pag diretso sa retained earnings at capital account, parang wala kang summary ng current operations. So, mas maganda nang meron ka munang income summary account para makita mo na muna yung resulta ng operation for the current period bago mo isama dun sa retained earning account or capital account. Okay. We have this illustration. In this illustration, we will close Terima to, hindi to mackerels. So we will close Terima drugstore again. Our problem is about Terima drugstore. So we will close Terima temporary accounts using the income summary method. There are 3 general closing entries that must be made. First, closing all revenue and gain accounts. All of the RIMACOR's revenue or income accounts are debited and credited to the income summary account. So, um, parang magulo. Closing all the revenue and gains account. All of the RIMACOR's revenue or income accounts are debited. Okay. The, the accounts, each individual account on the revenues will be debited to make it zero. Kasi dati yan, ano ba ang entrada natin pagka nagre-record tayo ng revenue? Debit cash or accounts receivable, credit revenue. So, at the end of the period, ang revenue mo naka-credit. So, at the closing period, dapat i-debit mo yon para maging zero. Kapag naka-credit, gusto mong gawing zero, edi i-debit mo. So, we are going to debit all the revenue accounts. And anong i-credit natin? The income summary account. So the entry will be a debit to revenue and a credit to the income summary account. Remember that all revenue, sales, income, and gain accounts are closed in the process. So, Tadima Course Business has a few accounts to close. Let's take, for example, ito yung mga accounts ng Terimacore. So, all expense accounts are then closed to the income summary account. Ito yung expense ng Terimacore. So, we'll go to the expense accounts. Lahat ng expense, ang original entry ay debit. So, to make it zero, we have to credit it. So, ito nga, lahat ng expense naka-credit. Oh. Ngayon, ano ang debit natin? Income summary. So, dun sa income summary, meron na tayo dalawang entrada. Meron na tayong income summary account, diba? Meron tayong income summary. Meron tayong entrada kanina na revenue at ngayon meron tayong entradang expenses. So, what will be left will be either net income or net loss. Now, kung ano yung difference nito, whether debit or credit, ay i-close natin sa retained earnings account kung corporation at capital account kung sole proprietorship or and partner. Now, close all the dividend or withdrawal accounts. Since dividend and withdrawal accounts are not income statement accounts, they do not typically use the income summary account. These accounts are closed directly to the retained earnings by recording a credit to the dividend account and a debit to a retained earnings. Dividend account ang naka-credit. Debit na yung retained earnings. Kasi yung retained earnings, etong dividend, nung inentrada natin, debit, dividends, credit, cash, part yan ng capital. Hindi siya asset, hindi siya liabilities, hindi rin siya expense. Pero deduction siya sa capital. So, i-close din natin siya kasi pakalat-kalat siya. Dapat mag-stick tayo sa asset is equal to liabilities plus capital. Ito yung target natin sa closing entries. Gawin mo uling basic accounting equation. Di ba dun sa process natin, kapag nag-operate ka, where capital is beginning to additional capital plus revenue minus expenses minus drawing. Yan yung nagiging extension kapag nag-operate ka, di ba? So, pagka magko-close ka, kapag end of the period na, buburahin mo na tong extension na to. Ililipat mo lahat dito sa capital. Para maging asset is equal to liabilities and capital ka ulit for the next accounting period. So, after that, we prepare the post-closing trial balance. Tatanggalin natin lahat yung mga expenses, revenue, and dividends and withdrawals. The post-closing trial balance is a list of all accounts and their balances after the closing entries have been journalized and posted to the ledger. In other words, the post-closing trial balance is a list of accounts of permanent accounts is a list of permanent accounts that has still to be that still have balances after closing entries have been made. Yung matitirang mga accounts na permanent. Yun ang nakalagay sa post-closing trial balance. Kaya natin tinatawag na permanent accounts yung mga balance sheet accounts kasi hindi sila kino-close or hindi sila affected ng closing process. Tinatawag nating temporary account yung mga revenue and expenses and capital withdrawals and dividends kasi they are taken away by the closing process. Nabubura sila ng closing process. The post-closing trial balance is identical to the accounts presented on the balance sheet. This makes sense because all of the income statement accounts have been closed and no longer have a current balance. The purpose of preparing the post-closing trial balance is to verify that all accounts have been closed properly and the total debits and credits in the accounting system equal after the closing entries have been made. So, kailangan ng post-closing trial balance para matest yung debit and credit ng ating mga natitirang accounts. So, the format in preparing post-closing trial balance is the same as the other trial balances in the accounting cycle, displaying in 3 columns, a column for account, names, debits, and credits. Since only balance sheet accounts are listed on this trial balance, they are presented in balance sheet order, starting with asset, liabilities, and ending with equity. As with the unadjusted and adjusted trial balances, both the debit and credit columns are calculated at the bottom of a trial balance. If these columns aren't equal, the trial balance was prepared incorrectly or the closing entries weren't transferred to the ledger accounts accurately. As with all financial reports, trial balances are always prepared with a heading. So, ito yung ating illustration, yung bicycle rental ng Terimacore. So this is the post-closing trial balance of Terimacore bicycle rental business. So we have the cash, take note of the accounts that remained. Accounts receivable, prepaid expenses, computer equipment. These are assets. Then we have accumulated depreciation contra asset. We have the accrued expenses, payable, loans payable, income tax payable. So we have the liabilities. And then we have the Terima core capital. So this is capital. So the revenue and expenses and drawing are no longer included in the post-closing trial balance. So here is the presentation of the balance sheet and the post-closing trial balance. Pareho lang, cash. Ito yung cash. Accounts receivable, prepaid expenses. So, computer equipment, accumulated depreciation, accrued expense, loans payable, income tax payable. So, we have a different balance here. Do we have the same balance here? No, we have a different balance here. It's not the same balance because the accumulated depreciation is presented in the credit side here, but in the balance sheet it is presented in the right side already. So it's not we don't have the same balances with the trial balance, and the balance sheet have no the same total balances because the accumulated depreciation is presented in the assets, while here or in the debit, while here the accumulated depreciation is presented on the credit side. So these are the accounts in the post-closing trial balance, and these are the accounts in the balance sheet, which are perfectly similar because the data coming from the post-closing trial balance are the data used in the preparation of the balance sheet. Now we'll go to the reversing entries. So, na-close na, i-reverse naman. Lahat ba i-reverse natin? Ano ibig sabihin ng reversing entry? A reversing entry is a journal entry made in an accounting period, which reverses selected entries made in the immediately preceding period. The reversing entry typically occurs at the beginning of an accounting period. So, na-close na natin lahat. Ngayon, magre-reversing entry tayo. It is commonly used in situations when either revenue or expenses were accrued in the preceding period, and the accountant does not want the accruals to remain in the accounting system for another period. So may option naman yung accountant. So reversing entries are not mandatory entries. It depends lang sa accountant kung gusto niya bang, kung kaya niya bang mag-shift from accrual, mag-shift dun sa system kasi merong method of recording accrual account. In accrual accounting, merong method of recording expenses. Merong tinatawag na expense method and asset method. Meron sa revenue naman, merong revenue method at liability method. So, gusto ba ng accountant na i-consistently follow yung method na yon from one accounting period to another accounting period? Kung gusto niya i-follow yung consistently, then kailangan niya ng reversing entry. Pero kung okay lang naman sa kanya na mag-calculate every time na magkakaroon ng adjustment to conform with the consistency of the method, you may do so. Kasi sa January lang transaction lang naman yun, o first month of the year transaction lang naman magkakaroon ng adjustment. Kasi ang i-reverse lang naman dito ay yung mga in-adjust noong last year or at the end of the period. Hindi lahat i-reverse. What are reversing entries and why they are used? Reversing entries are made on the first day of an accounting period to remove accrual adjusting entries that were made at the end of the previous accounting period. Two benefits of using reversing entries. It greatly reduces the chance of double counting revenues or expenses. It allows for more efficient processing of actual invoices that will be processed in the new accounting period. Hindi ka na maghahanap-hanap pa o sa libro mo ano ba dapat mong i-record. So, ano yung i-reverse natin? Yung mga adjusting entries natin on revenue and expenses using accrual method in the previous, because of accrual method in recording transaction. Kasi nag-a-adjust tayo, wala pa yung wala pa yung cash. Hindi pa natin naibigay yung cash. Wala pa yung cash, nire-recognize na natin yung income. Hindi pa natin naibibigay yung cash, nire-recognize na natin yung expense. So, meron tayong mga adjustments sa mga expenses at income na ito at the end of accounting period in adherence with the accrual basis of accounting principle. So, ngayon, i-reverse natin yan kasi hindi pa naman natin talaga income at hindi pa natin talaga expense. Kasi sa susunod na period, mag-i-issue tayo ng resibo para dun sa income na ni-record na natin at the end of the last accounting period. Magre-resibo tayo uli. First time natin magre-resibo, pero na-record na natin yung income noon. So, anong gagawin natin? I-reverse natin yung adjusting entry natin noon para pag record natin ng resibo ngayon, ang marireflect lang ay yung cash na tinanggap natin. Hindi kasama yung income doon sa cash. So, to illustrate the reversing entries, let's assume that a retailer Macorals, uses a temporary employment agency's service to provide workers from January 15 to December 29. The temporary employment agency, the RIMACOR, will bill Macorals on January 6, and she is required to pay invoice by January 10. Assuming that Macoral's accounting year ends on December 31, then she will make an accrual adjusting entry on December 31 for the estimated amount. So, yung December 15 to 29, marireceive yun ng January 6. At magpe-prepare ng invoice yung Terimacor on January 10. Kailan yun mababayaran? Next year na, January 10. So, December 15 to 29, hindi makakatanggap ng resibo yung Macorals from Terimacor. Ano ngayon gagawin ng Macorals? Gagawa na siya ng adjusting entry to recognize the expense. Kasi expense na yun hindi pa nga lang natatanggap yung bill at nababayaran. So, on December 15 to 29, magkakaroon na yan ng adjusting entry for the estimated amount. So, if the estimated amount is 18,000, the Macorals will debit agency service expense for 18,000 with credit accrued expense payable for 18,000. Wala pa yung resibo, hindi pa nababayaran, nire-recognize na natin yung expense during the adjusting period of the previous year. So, naka-record na yan sa libro natin. So, this debit agency service expense, 18,000, and credit accounts payable. This adjusting entry assures that the Macoral's income statement for the period ended December 31 will report the 18,000 expense, and its balance sheet as of December 31 will report a liability. After the financial statements are prepared, The closing entries will transfer the balance to the account service agency expense to an owner's or stockholder's equity account. As a result, the account agency expense will begin January with a zero balance. So, pinasok kasi natin lahat ng expenses sa income summary, kinredit natin na 18,000 ang expense. So, when a reversing entry is recorded as of January 1, it simply removes the estimated amounts contained in December 31 accrual adjusting entry. So, ito yung adjusting entry natin before post-closing trial balance. So, meron tayong adjusting entry na debit, expense, credit, accrued expense payable. Paano mo ngayon yan i-reverse? Babaliktarin mo lang. Gagawin mo lang 0. So, debit mo ngayon yung accounts payable at i-credit mo yung expense. So, parang binura mo lang yung transaction. Pero ito, itong 18,000 na to, part na to ng income summary for the last period. Naging bahagi na siya ng income statement. Na-recognize na siya as expense on December prior year. Ngayon, ang i-record mo na lang kasi ngayon ay ang payment. So, yung payment, bahagi yan ng current year. Pero yung expense, bahagi nung nakaraan na year. So, to do that, i-reverse mo siya para na-record mo lang yung income, na-record mo lang yung expense sa prior year at ang na-record mo ngayon ay ang cash payment lang. When the Terima course invoice dated January 6 arrives, Macorals, the retailer, can simply debit the invoice amount to agency service expense and credit accounts payable. Yan yung entrada to close. The receipt of actual invoice will change from a credit balance of 18,000 expense to a balance of 0. 0 is the correct expense for the new accounting period since the 18,000 has been reported as an expense in the previous period. So, itong 16 na to, at itong accounts payable na to, ito yung transaction ng last year. Tapos, ni-reverse mo, ginawa mo debit accounts payable, credit expense, ngayong reversing period. Ito, pumasok na to sa income ng December. Ito, part pa ito ng balance sheet account. Ngayon, nagbayad nga ang Macorals. Ano ang entrada? Debit expense at credit cash. Itong cash, totoong lumabas, 18,000. Pero itong expense na to, hindi na to mare-record na expense for the current period. Kasi ni-reverse mo yan eh. Nag-credit ka ng expense na 18,000. So, pag debit mo na expense ng 18,000, 0 na yun. Wala kang naka-record na expense for the current period. Kasi, dinebit mo na kaagad ito bago mo lagyan ng kinredit mo na ito bago mo lagyan ng debit. So, 0 ang epekto for the current year. So, ito illustration natin. With reversing entry, pwede walang reversing entry eh. Kasi i-adjust mo lang naman yung entrada mo. So, with reversing entry, ang entrada mo ay expense. Ito yung adjusting entry muna. Adjusting entry. Debit expense, credit accounts payable. Nag-closing entry tayo. Siniro natin yung expense. Pero yung accounts payable, di naman part ng closing process. So, nilagay na natin ito sa income statement. Now, so anong natira? Yung credit dun sa accounts payable. Kasi hindi naman siya kasama sa closing process. Now, ni-reverse naman natin. So, nung ni-reverse natin, dinebit natin yung adjusting entry natin, binaliktad natin, debit, expense, credit, accounts payable. Ni-reverse natin, ito, dinebit natin. Meaning to say, siniro natin to during the periods, at the beginning of the period, at kinredit natin yung expense. So, naka-credit yung expense. So, wala ka nang naka-record na accounts payable. Kasi na-reverse mo na, wala ka na rin naka-record na expense. Kasi dahil sa reversing entries. Ngayon, nagbayad. So, nagbayad, ang debit mo ay expense pa rin. Pero, zero na siya dahil na-record mo na nung. And credit sa cash. Kasi wala ka ng accounts payable na i-record dahil na-record mo na sa reversing entry. So, ang magiging credit mo ay cash na. Wala ka na dito sa accounts payable. Dahil hindi na naka-record as current yung accounts payable mo because of the reversing entry. So, tama na. Na-debit mo yung expense pero walang epekto dahil na-reverse mo at kinredit mo yung cash. Wala kang i-record sa payable kasi na-record mo na, na-reverse mo na siya. So, without reversing entry, ika-calculate mo ngayon kasi nakapasok pa yung adjusting entry mo. Ito yung adjusting entry mo, ito yung closing entry mo. So, kung wala kang reversing entry, anong gagawin mo? Wala kang entry sa expense kasi hindi mo na-reverse eh. Sa account payable mo, magkakaroon ka ng entrada kasi yung accounts payable mo naiwan eh. Debit expense, credit, accounts payable. So, merong accounts payable ka na naka-entrada. Pero, ito, na-close mo na eh. Wala nang natira. So, zero na to. Hindi mo na-reverse. So, adjusting entry mo, closing entry, zero na siya. Ano pa, i-entrada mo dito kung na-zero na siya. So, no entry ka rito sa expense account mo. Pero sa accounts payable mo, hindi mo ni-reverse, meron kang credit. So, pag entrada mo, ano gagawin mong entrada? Debit, accounts payable, So, ano magiging entrada mo? Debit, accounts payable, credit, cash. Yun ang magiging entrada mo. Instead na expense ang ide-debit mo, magiging accounts payable na. Dahil ang natirang account na naka-open ay accounts payable. So, yun lang yung yung pagkakaiba ng nag-reverse ka at hindi ka nag-reverse. Sa nag-reverse ka, ang entrada mo, debit expense and credit cash. Kasi na-reverse mo na yung accounts payable mo, na-zero mo na yun eh. Pero kung hindi ka nag-reverse, ang debit mo ay accounts payable at credit sa cash. Pareho mo namang maire-record yung dalawang transaction na yon at pareho lang din ang epekto. Kaya lang mag-iisip ka pa dun sa wala kang reversing entries. Pero kung consistent kasi, dapat kung nagbabayad ka ng expense method yung gamit mo, debit ka lang ng debit sa expense. Kaso ito, magbabayad ka, iisipin mo, expense ba yan o accounts payable? Kasi hindi ka nag-reverse eh. Pero kung nag-reverse ka, every year nagre-reverse ka, nasa utak mo na yon bilang accountant na palaging ganun na yung entrada mo at the beginning of the accounting period. Hindi ka na mag-iisip pa. Hindi ka na babalik sa resibo mo. So that winds up our discussion on closing entries and reversing entries. And that ends the whole accounting cycle na sinimulan natin sa source document and then nag-end sa closing entries at sinimulan muli sa reversing entries. Kung may natutunan kayo sa mga videos na ito or presentation na ito, please like and subscribe my channel. At meron pa tayong ibang pag-uusapan. Itatagalize natin yung ibang mga nasa English format na video presentation natin. And we're going to talk about income taxation and partnership and corporation in the future. Isa-isahin natin. So these are the 3 items that I'm going to share with my viewers. I'm done with the basic accounting. The next one will be partnership and corporation and income taxation. Individual income taxation muna ang i-discuss natin dito. So, invite everyone who are interested in learning accounting and income taxation to subscribe and like my channel. God bless everyone. Keep safe. Thank you, St. Augustine, for guiding me in preparing this presentation, and thank you to all those who made this presentation possible. A special thanks go to my students in PUP who helped me prepare this presentation. Special thanks go to the following students: Bea Janina Bantigue, Maxine Alain Ong, Irene Gonzalez, and J. Mark Valeria, all from PUP. Thank you guys. This is the dream that I had when you were my students and you helped me realize this dream. So thank you very much. Nakatulong tayong lahat sa ibang mga estudyante o mga taong nangangailangan ng presentation na ito. God bless and good luck to your journey as BA student. Sana maging CPA kayo. Thank you.